Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Astrology Now podcast. My name is Christine Rodriguez, and today we are going to be discussing Jupiter, the great benefic, the most benefic planet in Vedic astrology, who is responsible for growth, expansion, blessings, bringing light to darkness. We can never underestimate a good Jupiter transit. It can completely rock our world in the best way. And we are preparing to see this planet shift from the sidereal sign of Gemini into the sidereal sign of Cancer, where it is exalted. We'll have a full segment on Jupiter in Cancer, but I wanted to take time to create a little reflection segment. So that is what we are going to be doing today. Before we get too far into the podcast, please keep in mind we are using the sidereal Vedic system of astrology. If you're coming from the Western tropical background, the signs I'm using are not going to be correct, and you're going to be like, wait a second, I didn't think that Jupiter was in Gemini, and you're going to get confused. So please keep in mind I am using the Vedic sidereal system of astrology. I do have a new chart calculator on my website, innerknowing.yoga, where you can calculate your free Vedic birth chart. And I am accepting calls for the Inner Knowing Vedic coaching program. So if you are interested in joining us this year, you are welcome to sign up for a discovery call on my website. I'm also open to readings. And so the coaching program gets started in June. And so I have some readings working up to that start date. So, okay, I do want to give everyone the heads up that I'm so busy. Like, I have so much going on. It's almost hard to keep track of, but today it kind of feels like a little window is opening. I can feel things shifting a little bit, so I'm looking forward to things slowing down a little bit. This Yama Yoga, we've had a Yama Yoga for all of April. It started April 2nd. And remember, a Yama Yoga is the combination of Mars and Saturn, and it can create heaviness, intensity, back and forth energy, stop-go energy. You may have many ideas and creative force, but you may not necessarily know how to direct it, where to direct it. You may get started on a project and then have to go back. It's just Mars wants to go forward. It wants to accelerate. Saturn wants to slow us down, and it makes us want to reflect. I don't know if you all have been experiencing that, but I certainly have, and the people in my life certainly have. We are preparing for that Yama Yoga to end on May 11th. So that is really exciting. Looking forward to the end of the Yama Yoga. And just a reminder also, before we get into Jupiter and all the discussion around Jupiter, which I'm really excited about, I do just want to remind you all that Mars will be Gandanta here from May 8th through May 17th. So that's something I'm really keeping an eye on. And whenever I'm really keeping an eye on something, I like to mention it to you all as well. Just a review, Mars is the planet of war, frustration, anger. Gandanta are the degrees between a water and a fire sign. When planets cross the Gandanta degrees, there can be karmic knots that are unraveling. And so we may witness that in our own life around frustration, how we handle anger, how we handle aggression, how we handle conflict. We may witness more intensity in the world around us. We spoke about this a lot on our last podcast, I believe. So we're also preparing for a new moon in Taurus on May 16th. And I think, I'll talk to you all before then. Next Friday is the 15th. So we'll have a segment on the new moon next week. Remember that the moon is exalted in Taurus. So getting into our conversation about Jupiter. Jupiter is the great benefic, as mentioned. And what that means is that Jupiter is regarded as the most benefic planet. Jupiter offers protection. It offers a grace. If we have some type of an affliction in our birth chart, if it's aspected by Jupiter, it's like it offers a salve to that planet and it reduces a lot of the negative potential. When we're having a positive Jupiter transit, it can bring solutions, opportunity, growth, expansion, grace, fortune, luck. There are some people who just have all of this luck, things just kind of happen for them easily. That's often a sign of a positive Jupiter. Now, other signs of a positive Jupiter, people who are very righteous. Jupiter is associated to righteousness, dharma, expansion. Jupiter is the guru, that who brings light to darkness. Our teachers give us wisdom, knowledge, and insight. And that wisdom, knowledge, and insight helps to rid us of ignorance. And so not only can Jupiter bring this expansion and grace into our life, it can bring expansion and grace into our consciousness in how we perceive, interpret, and experience the world. That's why Jupiter is optimism and it's faith, right? Jupiter has to do with our ability to have faith in the universe, to have faith in God, and that is how we perceive the world, right? Our life really begins to shift when we can find meaning in our suffering. And Jupiter can help us find meaning, find faith, find value in our experiences, and it is optimism. One of the yogas that Jupiter creates, one of the most auspicious yogas, is the Gajasari yoga. This is when Jupiter is conjunct the moon, oppose the moon, or 4 or 10 from the moon. So if you're looking at your moon and Jupiter is 4 away, that's a Gajasari. If Jupiter is 7 away, that's a Gajasari. If Jupiter is 10 away, that's a Gajasari. And this is one of the most auspicious placements that you can have, and it gives this optimism, grace, leadership ability. It's a very, very powerful yoga. And it helps us with the ability to move through the world gracefully. Because if we have optimism, if we have faith, if we can make meaning of our experiences, that can really give us power in our life. And Gajasari is about power and optimism and respect and all that good stuff. So that's just a little bit about Jupiter. Some other fun facts. Jupiter is associated to the day Thursday. And so I will always plan classes on Thursday. Whenever I'm running the Vedic coaching program, we meet on Thursday because Thursday is the day of Jupiter. Jupiter is also associated to the color yellow. So if you're trying to increase the energy of Jupiter, if you're trying to really bring that abundance, lightness, optimism into your life, wearing yellow, you may get a yellow sapphire. That's also associated with Jupiter. If you're really wanting to honor Jupiter, do meditations for Jupiter, doing them on Thursday would be appropriate. So that is some information on Jupiter. And of course, as mentioned, Jupiter is teachers, those who we receive knowledge from. It has to do with education and knowledge, higher education. It's also very philosophical. It is religious. So people who are super religious, super optimistic, super expansive, they're very Jovian, very Jupiterian. My best friend in the world, he has multiple planets in Sagittarius governed by Jupiter, aspected by Jupiter. And so he's just super Jupiter and always wearing yellow. It's like his favorite color, always optimistic, can find meaning of everything. He's like So fun. I guess not to mention, he can also quote the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam in English, in Sanskrit, drop of the hat, off the couch, just perfect Sanskrit, was raised in a religious household. So anyway, that's Jupiter. And little fun fact, my teacher and friend, James Braha, always associates dogs to Jupiter because they are generous, compassionate, they give endlessly, they're optimistic, they're always happy. According to traditional Vedic astrology, dogs, of course, are associated to Ketu. So if we are trying to remedy a Ketu, if we are wanting to appeal to Ketu, we would serve dogs, feed stray dogs, particularly black dogs, which I have a black dog, completely unintentional. I did not intentionally get a black dog. He fell into my lap. Thank the universe. But black dogs are specifically associated to K2. But I just thought it was fun that James made that connection between dogs and Jupiter. And there's a lot of wisdom that comes from dogs as well in regards to being present, in regards to having faith, being generous, all of that good stuff. So that is a little bit about Jupiter. Now, Jupiter has been in Gemini since May 14th of 2025. Jupiter transits a sign a year. Jupiter is in a sign for an entire year. There are periods where it shifts into a sign and then retrogrades back out. So for example, Jupiter entered Gemini in May of 2025, where it stayed through October 18th of 2025, shifted into Cancer. It was exalted through December 4th, retrograded back into Gemini, of course, where it's staying through June 1st of 2026. But essentially for a year, Jupiter is in a sign. And it's been in Gemini. Gemini is the third sign, so it has an association to the third house. The third house is a Kama house, which has to do with relationships, friendships, neighbors, community. Gemini is also information, technology, communication, travel, humor, and we've seen a lot in the last year with AI and technology and research, information. Now, Jupiter is preparing to shift into Cancer. Again, Jupiter will shift into Cancer on June 1st of 2026, where it will stay for a year. There will be a little period of time here, let's see, in October. So from October 31st of 2026 through January 24th of 2027, Jupiter will be in Leo. And then it will retrograde back into Cancer on January 24th of 2027, where it will stay until spring of 2027. So that's just for the geeks like me who want to have everything down, to the date. I like tracking these things, obviously, but we'll talk about Jupiter and Leo in another podcast. This is actually a little bit more of a complex area of time. The end of 2026, I see as having some turbulence that we can talk about. But today I want to talk about Jupiter and Cancer. So Jupiter is going to shift into Cancer again on June 1st, where it is exalted. And Jupiter in Cancer is going to put an emphasis on home, right? Cancer is the home, the heart space. Being a mother, being connected to the divine mother, feeling that sense of protection and warmth. When I'm teaching, we always talk about why the planets are exalted in certain signs, why they're debilitated in certain signs. Remember, in 2020, Jupiter was debilitated in Capricorn. Now Jupiter is going to be exalted. It's going to have its own complications. I'm not going to lie, because Jupiter will be conjunct Ketu for a bit of this transit. Rahu will be conjunct Pluto. There's this opposition between Jupiter and Pluto that is going to occur. I'll talk about that a little bit today. But just focusing on Jupiter in Cancer, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer because Jupiter wants to expand and grow and give and teach. And Cancer is the sign of the mother. Now, I know we've all had different experiences with mother. I'm talking about divine mother energy, mother archetype. Nourishes without discrimination, affectionate endlessly. There's this unconditional love that comes with mother energy. And so when Jupiter is trying to expand and give and teach, it becomes exalted in Cancer because it can teach endlessly, give endlessly, be endlessly generous. Even, the mother is one of the first teachers, of course. Jupiter is the teacher, so it feels very comfortable here. Jupiter in Cancer has this association to keeping us safe, keeping us nourished, tending to our heart space. And so this is going to be a year of really figuring out what brings us this sense of safety and security and nourishment, what helps us relax our nervous system, who is it that we can trust, what is our balance between work and life. Are we creating enough time for work and our ambitions and our goals? Are we prioritizing this agenda enough? Are we prioritizing our home? Do we have enough time with our family? Do we have enough time to make new recipes that we want to make? Are we keeping our space beautiful? Are we bringing that sukha, that sweetness into our home? It's so important. Our outward world really impacts our inner experience. For some of us, there may even be a healing around motherhood. It could be our experience with being a mother, with our mother, with how we relate to receiving generosity, receiving affection, receiving nourishment. For some of us, it's very difficult to let someone cook us a meal or take us out or clean our home for us or do chores for us, however it shows up in our own life. But some of us have a hard time with that receptiveness. And so it could be a time of healing our relationship to receptivity, again, healing our relationship to the mother. Some of us may even be thinking about family planning or becoming a mother. And remember that healing the relationship with mother, it doesn't necessarily need to mean that we become best friends with our mom and we heal all of our stuff. It can be how we relate to that essence, that archetype, right? Because I know that some of us, it's just not healthy to have a relationship with our born mother. So that is Jupiter in Cancer on a personal level, but on a global level, because Cancer is homeland real estate, we're absolutely going to see a focus on the housing market, affordability, mortgages, interest rates, insurance, and also homeland security. I know that I've spoken about this before, but when NATO was created, we had opposite of what we'll experience during this transit. We had Pluto in Cancer and Jupiter in Capricorn. Now we have the opposite. We have Pluto in Capricorn and Jupiter in Cancer. So please be keeping an eye on NATO and any shifts there, how we relate to other countries, different alliances, security measures. I know I've spoken about this before, but I do anticipate there being more of a focus on things like digital IDs, how we keep the homeland safe, quote unquote, or not quote unquote, depending on how you view all of that. And again, just like housing market, affordable housing, how housing works. And even motherhood, mothers, children, protecting children, caring for others, child care, education, things like that. So that's a little tidbit on Jupiter in Cancer. Y'all know I love to do the research piece, so I plan to have an entire segment on Jupiter in Cancer looking at the research. But this is what we have to look forward to. But before moving into a new transit, I always like to reflect on what previous transits brought. I just thought about this. I have to say this before I forget. What I love about Jupiter in Cancer is that it's going to aspect Saturn. We love that. As we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, when Jupiter aspects certain placements, it brings an alleviation. It brings a salve. It helps alleviate pain, even misfortune. And so with Saturn receiving the benefic ray of Jupiter, that's going to help support Saturn exponentially. If you are a Pisces moon and you're in Sati Sati with Saturn sitting on your moon, this Jupiter aspect, I imagine, is going to really help bring a lightness. It depends on your birth chart. It depends on your dasha. It depends on everything. But generally speaking, having having Jupiter aspect Saturn, it's going to feel like a weight is being lifted a little bit. Okay. So I'm excited, obviously. I keep talking about this transit because I'm really looking forward to it. So that's that. And as mentioned, before we get ahead of ourselves, going back and reviewing the previous year and some questions that I wrote down that are Jupiter in Gemini specific, because remember, Gemini is education, lightness, youth, friends, connection, humor, and then Jupiter is Brihaspati, education, knowledge, guru of the gods, all of that good stuff. The first question for reflection for you is, what narratives or truths did I outgrow? So in the last year of Jupiter in Gemini, what truths, quote unquote truths, did you outgrow? I saw this really fun reel on Instagram where this woman was eating at a table and she had this menu and she's like talking to the universe and she's like, okay, I'll have the fries. It's the only thing on the menu. And someone sitting next to her is like, you can actually order whatever you want. And the other lady is like, well, then why do I have this menu that only says fries? And she's like, I don't know. Maybe you got it from your parents. Maybe you had a rough experience. I don't know how you got that menu, but you can order whatever it is that you want. And it made me laugh because as we move through the world, we think that we're only capable of certain things. We think that life can only be a certain way. We're only on this path. We can only have this outcome. We view the world through this limited paradigm, when in reality, there's so much more that's possible. There are so many more options, so many more outcomes, so many more ways to handle situations. The opportunities are endless. But we develop these quote unquote truths that govern our reality. So in this last year, were there any parts of your life where you outgrew a limiting narrative or you outgrew a quote unquote truth that you realized wasn't necessarily real? It was a lowercase t, right? We have the uppercase T, which is the ultimate truth, the objective truth, which are very few and far between. And then we have our limited perspectives that we think are true. Second question, which connections felt stimulating versus energetically draining? So which connections, friendships, family, intimate partnerships, which of those felt stimulating and invigorating and which felt energetically draining? I could say a lot about that. Third question, if this past year was a classroom, what was the main lesson or the main takeaway from this last cycle of Jupiter starting in May of 2025? Final question, where did I realize I had more options than I originally thought? Kind of similar to question one. Where did I realize I had more options than I originally thought? So those are some questions to think about. I've also been thinking about blessings, opportunities, areas of my life that have brought me joy. In this last cycle of Jupiter in Gemini, I started salsa dancing. I started learning Spanish. I'm having K2 transit my second, which is like family lineage. And so it's felt really important to me to connect more to my heritage. And so that has been so much fun. Areas of education that are only for fun, which is new to me. Usually I'm learning because it's helpful for my profession or it's I mean, it's always fun, but it's religiously driven, spiritually driven. There's some type of weight and gravity to it that feels super important. And salsa dancing in Spanish, it feels very important, but it feels like it's fun. You know what I mean? It's like, it feels like it's just for fun. It's just for me, if that makes sense. I've also reflected a lot on my friendships and connections and how my patterns of intimacy, how they show up in my friendships as well as in intimate partnerships. And that's been very fascinating. So I just wanted to share that because maybe you can relate to it or it can help spur some introspection in your own life. So this is what I have for today. This is our final month of Jupiter in Gemini. So really trying to take advantage of it while it's here, preparing for Jupiter in Cancer that we'll have a year of. As I've mentioned multiple times, we will have an entire segment on Jupiter in Cancer. This is a really complex transit that we're going to have. There's so much beauty to it, so much incredible potential for growth and expansion. K2 will enter Cancer in November. So K2 will enter Cancer, Rahu will enter Capricorn from November of 2026 through May of 2028. It's an 18-month cycle. And so for a lot of that transit with Jupiter in Cancer, it will be with K2. So we'll have Jupiter and K2 opposing Rahu and Pluto. So that's a very significant period of time, especially for people who are Cancer, who are Capricorn, who have many planets in Cancer or Capricorn. So just a little preview into our segments to come. And I also want to say we have some folks, if you were born in like 1990, 1991, I have a lot of friends who actually have Jupiter and K2, Saturn and Rahu in their birth chart. So a little bit different, but y'all are going to be having a K2 return and a Jupiter return. So it's a really big time for that age bracket. So if you are wanting to book a reading, again, I do have my calendar available. I would love to talk about how Jupiter in Cancer is going to impact you. And I have my calls open for the Inner Knowing Vedic coaching program. So if you are wanting to learn more about implementing daily spiritual practice into your life, how Ayurveda and jyotish, Vedic astrology, how understanding these sciences can be integrated into your life to create meaning, authenticity, and a connection to universe, to your spirituality, I would love to talk to you. I always look forward to running this program. My website is innerknowing.yoga. I do weekly horoscopes for all 12 signs at patreon.com/astrologynowpodcast. And my Instagram is astrologynow_podcast. My name is Christine Rodriguez. This is Astrology Now. See you next week.